Today, we are going to be checking out 30 insane facts about Germany, geography that will shock you. Look, man, yesterday we checked out food from Germany. Today, we checking out the geography, man. Link to this vid will be in the description. Let's go and get right into this, y'all.
This is Germany, stranger than you've been told. A pool hiding a labyrinth. Flamingos in a cold bog. A village stuck inside another country. And we're going to explore all of it, beginning right now at Fact 30. Let's start with the pool of water that shouldn't exist. In a small town in southern Germany sits the Blautopf, and the first thing you notice is the color, a deep, electric, almost unreal blue. It's not dye. The water is packed with limestone particles so fine they scatter light the same way the sky does. But the real secret is underneath. That quiet little pond is the doorway to one of the largest underwater cave systems in the country, over 18 kilometers of flooded tunnels and hidden halls. It looks like a village pond. It's the tip of a drowned labyrinth, and it's killed divers who tried to map it. Fact 29. Now up to the North Sea coast, where 10 tiny islands called the Halligen sit out in the tidal flats with no dikes around them at all. When a storm rolls in, the sea simply walks over the top of them. On Halliglongenes, that happens 20 to 30 times a year. Every house is built on a man-made mound, so during a flood, each home becomes its own little island. And nobody there sees it as a catastrophe. It's just the rhythm of the place. Fact 28.
That's different.
Down in Bavaria, there's a town called Nördlingen, and it's hiding something. The whole town sits inside a near-perfect circle, 25 kilometers wide, and that circle is a scar. Around 15 million years ago, an asteroid a kilometer across slammed into this exact spot, and the impact squeezed the rock into an estimated 72,000 tons of microscopic diamonds. Then the townspeople quarried that rock and built their houses out of it. They've been living inside a crater, in homes made of diamonds, and for centuries, nobody had any idea. Fact 27. Now look at the map near the Swiss border, and you'll spot a dot of Germany that shouldn't be there. Busingen am Hochrhein is a German village completely surrounded by Switzerland, cut off from the rest of the country by a strip of Swiss land just 680 meters wide. People there mostly pay in Swiss francs. The village runs 2 postcodes, and the local football club plays in the Swiss League. Fact 26. Up in the Harz Mountains, there's a summit called the Brocken.
So do they need to use their passport? Does it need to be stamped each time they go back and forth in and out of that place?
And at 1,141 meters, it really shouldn't be dramatic. But it's fogged in around 300 days a year, holds snow for about 178, and it's regularly called the windiest place in the country. The climate is closer to Iceland than to the fields below. And if you head due east from that summit, the next serious mountain is in the Urals. Fact 25. Now, picture a flamingo. You're probably thinking of an African salt lake or maybe the Caribbean. You are not thinking of a cold bog on the Dutch border of Germany. But that's exactly where you'll find them. In a wetland called the Zwilbroker Ven, wild pink flamingos have been showing up to breed every single spring since the 1980s, raising their chicks in the German drizzle. This is the northernmost flamingo colony on Earth. Nowhere else on the planet do these tropical birds nest this far from the equator. Germany, of all places, holds the record. Fact 24. Along the Elbe in Saxony stands a forest made of stone, over 1,100 sandstone towers rising straight out of the ground. What they actually are is wild. The flat floor of a shallow sea from 100 million years ago, laid down in layers, then lifted up and carved by water into these jagged pillars. And people come from all over the world to climb them. This is the birthplace of free climbing, with more than 17,000 routes threading up the rock, and rules so strict that Metal Gear and even chalk are banned to keep the soft stone from crumbling. Fact 23.
There's no way. So hold on, what they using to climb these things? Because there's no way, fam.
Southeast of Berlin, the River Spree does something rivers usually only do when they reach the sea. It fans out into an inland delta, splitting into hundreds of channels through the forest, around 300 kilometers of waterways in total. In the village of Led, some houses still can't be reached by road, so the post has arrived by boat for 129 years. The postwoman rows it in standing up with one long oar. Fact 22. Way out in the North Sea, roughly 50 kilometers from the coast, sits a small island of deep red sandstone called Helgoland. And that rock has no business being there. The entire North Sea coastline is flat and pale. Yet Helgoland rises straight out of the water as a lone red monolith, the only cliff of its kind on the whole continental coast. And Germany only owns it because of one of the strangest swaps in its history. In 1890, it gave up its claim to Zanzibar, a tropical spice island off East Africa, and walked away with this cold red rock instead. On paper, a spectacularly bad trade.
On everything, like, come on, y'all traded Zanzibar for this?
Fact 21. Out in the middle of Lake Constance, there's a stretch of water that belongs to nobody. Germany, Switzerland, and Austria have never signed a treaty to fix the border, and they can't even agree on how it should work. Switzerland wants a line down the middle. Austria wants all three to share it, and Germany takes no position at all. So the center of the lake is one of the last genuinely undefined borders left in Europe. And that same no man's water quietly supplies drinking water to millions of people across southwestern Germany.
Fact 20. So where's the lowest natural ground in the country? You'd expect somewhere dramatic. Instead, it's a quiet meadow beside farmland in a village called Neuendorf Sachsenbande up in Schleswig-Holstein, sitting 3.54 meters below sea level. It looks so completely ordinary that a rival village down in Lower Saxony spent years insisting they had the real low point, and it took an official survey to settle the argument. Fact 19. Here's something most people never think about. The whole southwest of Germany sits inside a rift valley, the Upper Rhine-Graben, running about 300 kilometers from Basel up to Frankfurt. It's a genuine crack in the continent, still slowly pulling apart, and it makes that corner the shakiest ground in Central Europe.
Ooh.
The largest earthquake ever recorded in this part of the world flattened Basel back in 1356. Fact 18.
I wonder, does that crack lead to the one that's going through Africa as well, the one in Ethiopia?
In the gentle green Eifel in the west, there's a lake called the Lacher See, and it fills the only volcanic caldera in Central Europe. The eruption that created it, around 12,900 years ago, was on the scale of Pinatubo and threw ash across much of the continent. The magma system is still down there, and you can watch carbon dioxide bubble up through the water along the southeastern shore.
Fact 17. Germany's highest point is the Zugspitze in the Bavarian Alps, topping out at 2,962 meters. And the summit is split in two because the German-Austrian border runs straight across it. Stand at the top on a clear day, and you're looking into 4 countries at once. Germany and Austria under your feet, Italy to the south, and Switzerland to the west. By alpine standards, the peak is honestly modest. Germany only catches the very northern edge of the Alps, so it gets the foothills rather than the giants. But 4 countries in a single glance is still a decent view. Fact 16. On the Baltic coast sits Rügen, the largest island in Germany, and its eastern edge is a wall of brilliant white chalk that rises 118 meters at a point called the Königstuhl. That chalk is about 97% pure, and it's made almost entirely from the shells of microscopic algae that sank through a warm sea 70 million years ago. And it's also falling apart. In 2005, an entire famous headland collapsed into the water. Fact 15. Here's a comeback story. Wolves were wiped out in Germany for roughly 150 years. Then, right around the year 2000, they quietly walked back in from Poland and had their first pups in eastern Saxony. In the most recent completed monitoring year, the country counted 219 packs across 276 territories, and at least 1,636 individual wolves.
From
and
zero
the breakneck
to over
expansion
1,000.
of the early years is finally starting to slow. Fact 14. The lynx is staging its own quiet comeback. After being hunted out of almost all of Central Europe for about 200 years, roughly 130 to 140 Eurasian lynx now live in Germany again, split between the Bavarian forest, the Palatinate forest, and the Harz, where a reintroduction has become the fastest growing group in the country. The catch is that those 3 populations sit so far apart they barely mix.
Fact 13. Brandenburg has a desert. About 95 kilometers southeast of Berlin lies the Lieberosa Desert, a bare sand plain roughly 5 square kilometers across, ringed with dunes, where the ground can hit 60 degrees in summer. Locals call it Little Siberia. It began with a forest fire in 1942. Decades of Soviet tanks then kept it stripped bare, and there's still unexploded ammunition buried under it. Fact 12. Roughly a third of Germany is covered in forest, which is striking for a country this crowded and this industrial. But here's the part people miss. Hardly any of it is wild. Most of it was planted, and the fast-growing spruce that went in after the wars is now dying in enormous numbers from drought and bark beetle. That famous German forest is really a 200-year-old crop, and the crop is failing. Fact 11. The Rhine is the longest river running through Germany, with around 865 kilometers inside the country. And it's the busiest inland waterway in all of Europe. A huge share of German freight moves on the water rather than the roads. When the Rhine runs low in a hot summer, factories hundreds of kilometers away start rationing, which tells you exactly how much the country leans on it. Fact 10. The country is split in half by this river. It's the Mayne. It runs about 525 kilometers from the hills of northeastern Bavaria down to the Rhine near Mainz. Germans really talk about the Mayne line as the divide between north and south. In dialect, in food, in temperament. Cross it, and even the sausage changes.
Fact 9. Germany is home to more than 400 registered zoos and animal parks, among the highest count of any country on Earth. And the oldest of them, Berlin Zoo, holds one of the most complete species collections found anywhere. A country with wolves returning to the wild and this many animal parks at the same time is a country that really likes its animals. Fact 8. Hamburg is one of the biggest seaports in Europe, and it isn't on the sea. It sits about 110 kilometers up the River Elbe, and the only reason ocean-going ships can reach it is that the channel is dredged constantly, because the river keeps filling it back in with silt. The tide still reaches the city center. Germany's gateway to the world is a river port that refuses to admit it. Fact 7. The northernmost point in Germany is a village called List on the island of Sylt, and there's no road to it. The island is joined to the mainland by an 11-kilometer railway causeway built in 1927. So if you want to bring your car, the car goes on a train. You sit inside it, doors shut, while the whole thing rolls out across the sea. Fact 6. Germany also quietly kickstarts one of the great rivers of the world. The Danube, the second longest river in Europe, is born in the Black Forest. And from that quiet German woodland, it flows east and grows into the giant that waters Vienna, Budapest, and Belgrade, touching 10 countries before it spills into the Black Sea. So the next time you picture the Danube, remember it started as a trickle in a German wood. Fact 5. Back to weird borders, because Germany's not done with those. Along the Belgian border, there are 5 tiny scraps of Germany completely cut off from the rest of the country, and they exist because of an old railway line called the Vennbahn. When the rail bed was handed over to Belgium, the track looped around bits of German land here and there, and every single loop snipped off another little piece and left it stranded. A railway that accidentally cut its own country into confetti. Fact 4. Now look at northeastern Germany and you'll see it's freckled with lakes. Over 1,000 of them in Mecklenburg alone, and not one of them was carved by a river. The whole lot were scooped out by ice sheets during the last ice age. The biggest, the Müritz, is the largest lake lying entirely inside Germany, and its name comes from an old Slavic word meaning little sea, which is fair enough. Fact 3. Here's one that only makes sense once you think about borders moving. The geographic center of Germany keeps relocating. Under the old empire, it sat down at Spremberg. Today, after reunification, a stone and a lime tree in the Thuringian village of Niederdorla mark the spot, worked out by a university in Dresden. Several other villages still insist the real center is theirs, and honestly, they all have a case. Fact 2. Germany is the largest producer of lignite in Europe. And to feed the open-pit mines, entire villages have been evacuated and flattened, some of them more than 1,000 years old.
Close to 50 settlements in the Rhineland mining region have been wiped off the map this way. Whole communities and centuries of history swallowed to reach the coal underneath. And it isn't finished happening. And finally, fact 1. The strangest thing of all, Germany doesn't really have a name. Or rather,
What?
it has a completely different one in almost every neighboring language, more than just about any country on Earth. And that's pure geography. Sitting dead center in Europe, surrounded on every side, Germany was never one people to its neighbors. It was whichever tribe each of them happened to meet first. The Romans hit the Germani, so English says Germany. The French and Spanish met the Alemanni tribe, so it's Alemania and Alemania.
Really? I never. Okay.
The Finns and Estonians ran into the Saxons, so it's Saxa. The Germans, naming themselves, went with the people's land, Deutschland. And the Slavs to the east called them Nimsi, from a word meaning the mutes, the people who don't speak our tongue. One country, ringed by neighbors, wearing a different name in every direction you look. So that is Germany.
So hold on. People in Germany don't call Germany Germany.
One country hiding a breathing volcano, a border cut into confetti by a railway, a village that swapped places with Zanzibar, and a whole ice age frozen into its lakes. Far stranger than most people will ever realize. But, as we always say, the best stories always come from the people who...
Nah, Germany looks like it has some dope touristy spots though. A few of those mountain ranges, and then I seen some snow in some areas. It looks really dope. Yesterday, like I said, we checked out the food. Go check out that video if you haven't already, man. But yeah, comment down below y'all thoughts, man. It's just, if you're from Germany, you know what I'm saying? How was these facts? Did he miss anything? If you guys do my reaction commentary, link to this video will be in the description. Stay tuned next to y'all.